With every new semblance that is introduced into the RWBY series, the realm of what is possible for a semblance continues to expand. So the question has always been in the back of my mind, what is the strongest semblance possible in the world of RWBY, or the most reality-breaking or broken semblance possible based on what we know about the RWBY series thus far? Perhaps the strongest semblance that we will see is Glinda Goodwich's telekinesis. It's hard to argue against a semblance that could manipulate any object in their vicinity all the way up to the scale of pretty much an entire city block. Or perhaps, on the scale of the most broken semblance, it's Raven Bronwyn's Kindred Link, the ability to make a portal through space seemingly across the entirety of Remnant as long as she has a connection to the person she's creating a portal to. Or even, it might be Fiona Time's semblance, the ability to store physical matter within her aura and seemingly disregard its mass entirely. Or there's also luck semblances that can manipulate the probability of actions, etc. There's many different reality-breaking semblances, but in the realm of the strongest semblance, it is hard to argue against telekinesis. That is, until we got new semblances introduced in RWBY Before the Dawn. This opened up so many other doors for what is possible for semblances, and one of those semblances in particular opens up a couple of possibilities for what is possible in the realm of semblances that I think should not have been opened. And likely we won't see the semblances I'm going to mention or the abilities I'm going to mention in this video in the RWBY series, but it's hard to argue that they would not be possible based on this semblance in particular. So, spoiler warning for those who have not seen or read Before the Dawn just yet, as I will be going over a number of the semblances and a couple of the events that were in that novel, so just a fair warning on that. In Before the Dawn, we got some extremely powerful semblances, such as Aura Siphon, held by Jillian Asturias. This ability allows a person to siphon the aura from others, add it to their own, essentially creating a intangibility semblance like Talk has, where they have enough aura where they can just disregard any attacks that opponents have at them. Their aura becomes physically visible, a rainbow of different colors with having all of these different colors of aura added to their own. But not only that, they can also gift that aura to others, increasing temporarily the aura of other people and things like that. So it is an extremely powerful aura manipulation semblance. We also got the semblance of Jillian's brother, Jax, which is essentially mind control. He can put a suggestion in someone's mind and make them completely subservient to himself for weeks on end. Now, that could have only been possible because Jillian was supplying him with aura, but we're not exactly sure about that. Regardless, though, Jax and Jillian have incredibly strong semblances. Even though they do require physical contact to work, to be able to siphon aura from someone or gift it to someone and to implant that suggestion in someone, they are still incredibly broken. But it is neither of these semblances that open up the doors to the most powerful semblances I think are possible in the world of RWBY. The semblance that does that is actually Golden Touch, the semblance held by Xanth Rumpole, the right hand to Theodore. Her semblance is when she makes physical contact with an object, she is able to turn it into gold. Not the most powerful semblance in the world of RWBY, I will admit. Being able to turn something into gold and not be able to reverse it doesn't really seem all that powerful. But this semblance does two things that no other semblance before it has ever done. The first is create something that is absolutely permanent. She turns something into gold, and that stays. That is permanent. No other semblance has been able to manipulate something permanently after the semblance has been activated. It's always a temporary strength increase, or a temporary boost in speed, a temporary mind control, a temporary gifting of aura or siphoning of aura. Temporary is what a semblance is supposed to be. Semblances are fueled by aura, and thus, once that aura runs out, the semblance should no longer be active. But with Rumpole, it seems she, without using too much aura, is able to change something permanently in the world. But it isn't this factor of the semblance that makes it broken necessarily. It does open up some doors that could make other semblances broken, but it is what Rumpole is actually doing by changing something into gold that is absolutely ridiculously broken. Because how does she change something into gold? She did this with Neptune's jacket and Neptune's glove and Carmenes GLaDOS' sai in Before the Dawn. So whatever element it is, whether it's jacket created from cotton or nylon, or a sai created from some sort of metal, Rumpole is able to physically change the atoms into gold. She can manipulate the atoms themselves. Not only just manipulate atoms, but manipulate the nuclei of atoms. And although the way in which she does this isn't exactly clear, whatever way it is, it's extremely powerful to be able to manipulate the atoms, and arguably should not be possible within the world of RWBY, at least if it's taken to the extremes that I think it could be. When RWBY used her semblance on Neptune's jacket, he noted that it physically got heavier. He could no longer move. This jacket became gold. All of the atoms that were present in the jacket seemingly transformed into gold. To do that, the atoms of Neptune's jacket had to have gotten heavier. So to transform one atom into a different atom, you have to add protons, neutrons, and electrons. You have to add physical mass. So RWBY's semblance is creating protons, neutrons, and electrons, creating physical mass, creating physical objects in the world of RWBY. That sounds like creation from the world of the gods, something that the god of light or the god of darkness should only be capable of, or possibly the relic of creation and other relics like that. This is the realm of magic, and hence why I'm hoping and praying that RWBY's semblance is actually magic, because this is something that I don't think should be possible for semblances. Semblances should not be able to create. Even though RWBY's semblance is only able to create atoms for gold molecules, the ability to create physical mass and creation being possible just from using a person's aura that can continually regenerate, that doesn't really seem like something that should be possible given what we know about semblances thus far. But it's also possible that she's not creating those protons, neutrons, electrons, etc. from her aura itself. Maybe she's just pulling molecules from the air, or protons, neutrons, and electrons from molecules in the air, and adding those to the molecules within Neptune's jacket. Or if it's a heavier element than gold, maybe she's just removing the protons, neutrons, electrons, etc., and manipulating things like that. Well, that creates a whole other problem, because that would involve nuclear fission by splitting atoms apart, and nuclear fusion by fusing atoms together. Now, I have gotten a little bit scientific with the explanation of things: protons, neutrons, electrons, nuclear fission, nuclear fusion, etc. Then let me put this very simply. Nuclear fission and nuclear fusion are the reactions that take place in nuclear bombs. So essentially, if RWBY's semblance is able to fuse atoms together or break them apart and manipulate the actual building blocks of the nuclei of atoms themselves, then there could be a semblance that is possible that could just simply do less than RWBY's. Just split atoms apart by making contact with them. If someone walked up to a building and placed their hand on it and just atomized everything, destroyed the atoms in all of that, then it would create a nuclear reaction and cause an explosion big enough to, wipe out the entire city of Vacuo in one blow. Like, semblances that manipulate atoms, I don't think should be possible. So with RWBY's semblance being able to change the atoms themselves from one element to another is completely broken, and atomic manipulation is something on a scale we have not seen in the world of RWBY. Now, of course, there could be some people questioning whether, RWBY is an alternate universe. Aura exists, magic exists, there's probably a different fundamental rule set for this world. And that may be the case. However, with Neptune's semblance of water attraction, it was specifically mentioned in RWBY Before the Dawn that he charges the molecules with his aura to manipulate them. So molecules exist in the world of RWBY. Not to mention, when RWBY turned Neptune's jacket into gold, everyone exclaimed that she turned them into gold. It was actually becoming gold. Therefore, gold is a metal that is known in the world of RWBY. It is also valuable. As Fox said, Neptune could just sell his jacket and buy 100 more. So gold is a valuable element. It seems to be equating it to gold in our world. Therefore, I am left to assume that gold is also an element on the periodic table. Molecules existing, there is also a periodic table for RWBY as well. Possibly different. There are going to be different elements that exist. Dust would probably be on there somewhere, and there would be different aspects of it, but the fact that molecules and atoms do exist, I would argue that these fundamental forces of the world of RWBY are also the same. In our world, there are 4 fundamental forces: gravity, electromagnetism, weak nuclear force, and strong nuclear force. Now, the strong nuclear force is the one in question here, as it is the one responsible for holding pretty much everything together. The quarks that make up protons and neutrons, but it is also responsible for holding the nucleus together itself, holding protons and neutrons together in that nucleus. And just to put this in perspective, the strong nuclear force is, I believe, in the website I found, it was quoted to be 6,000 trillion times stronger than gravity. which is 6 times 10 to the 39 times stronger, 10 times 6 to, regardless, extremely strong. Even if it was, I don't know, 6 times 10 to the 10 times stronger than gravity. The fact that RWBY is being able to interfere with this, with her semblance, with just a touch and a pulse of her aura, is incredibly broken. So let's say someone is able to, as I said, just touch an object and manipulate that force in any capacity, fuse atoms together, break them apart, the release of energy from that. As with nuclear fission and nuclear fusion, with being able to interrupt this strong nuclear force, or the force that's holding the nuclei together, it releases energy, whether it's breaking atoms apart or fusing them together. Now, nuclear fission operates by breaking apart larger atoms. In our world, normally it's more unstable atoms and creating two smaller ones, and, releases energy and neutrons, etc. And with nuclear fusion, it's normally the fusion of lighter atoms. It is what the sun is doing in our world, fusing hydrogen atoms together into helium atoms. This can be artificially recreated in, atom bombs, hydrogen bombs, and certain forms of nuclear weaponry, but the fact that this could be replicated in a semblance is something that should not be possible. Now, there is also the question of, if RWBY is able to do this with her semblance, be able to break atoms apart or fuse them together, why isn't she causing a nuclear reaction when that happens? Well, that could just be because of the inherent nature of her semblance, that the aura is mitigating this energy or nullifying it in some way. The fact that Fiona's semblance is able to absorb matter into her aura just shows that aura itself kind of breaks our known rules of reality, and RWBY being an alternate universe, it has its own rules associated with that. But all that has to happen for a semblance to be able to cause a nuclear explosion is to be able to manipulate the atoms and just not have that added aspect of aura nullifying that energy. And then, there we go. We have a nuclear explosion semblance. This obviously would be a bit of a double-edged sword, as it would require physical contact most likely, and someone walking up and being that close to a nuclear explosion would probably destroy themselves as well if the explosion was large enough. But if they are able to pulse the aura and start a chain reaction and then be able to get the heck out of Dodge before the overall explosion happens, then perhaps they would be able to outlive or outrun a giant explosion like that. So there are a number of possibilities when it comes to atomic manipulation, something that I really don't think should be possible in the world of RWBY, not to mention semblance permanence, that RWBY is able to permanently change something into gold. If it was a semblance that temporarily changed something or temporarily made something heavier, that could be explained by the aura itself. But the fact that it is permanently turned into gold means that she is permanently changing the atoms themselves from whatever they once were into gold, into a heavier element or a lighter element. Normally in this case, being Neptune's jacket and glove and Carmen Escalados' sai, it's something heavier, making it more unusable. And with that being the case, she has to manipulate the atoms in some way, shape, or form, create mass out of somewhere, either creating protons and neutrons, which is the realm of the gods, or by manipulating the atoms themselves, fusing them together from the air, or doing other sorts of manipulation. Whichever way it is possible, it is extremely broken and opens up some extremely powerful doors. One last little comparison I want to make, as it's hard not to make this comparison given what RWBY is actually doing, by changing something into gold. That is essentially what alchemists were trying to do for years way back in the past in the history of our world. And so, with alchemy being brought into question, you might compare it to Full Metal Alchemist and the alchemy present in there. But Full Metal Alchemist itself operates on the principle of equivalent exchange. The mass stays constant no matter what you are transforming it to. And alchemy is an ability that is used by all of the alchemists. They use it in various different ways, but alchemy is still alchemy. They are able to manipulate things and change the atoms from one form to another, and the mass stays constant. So that could explain just in the inherent nature of alchemy itself why the energy is contained. But with Semblance, even though they operate off of aura, for each individual, the ability is different. Sure, there are some overlaps, but for the most part, all the abilities are different and can't be replicated by someone else just because they have aura. They all operate differently, so it's easily possible that one Semblance, being able to manipulate the atoms like RWBY, could have a different Semblance that is also able to manipulate atoms but do something completely different with them. So in conclusion, there are some broken Semblances now possible for the world of RWBY. I don't think we will ever see something on the scale of being able to make things explode by just making physical contact with them. I think that would be far too strong for what we know in the world of RWBY, and would be essentially something that the Relic of Destruction could do. But RWBY's semblance seems to have an aspect of creation with it, if she's able to create protons, neutrons, etc. Or just being able to manipulate atoms themselves is a very broken ability. Hopefully, if someone who works on RWBY is able to see this video, maybe they could explain a little bit better, or at least give RWBY a bit of magic. She is a member of Ozpin's inner circle, so RWBY might have gotten a little bit of magic from Ozpin, considering that RWBY is one of the ones guarding the Relic of Destruction, possibly the most dangerous relic out of all of them, so it would make sense that Ozpin would give a little bit of extra defense to Theodore and RWBY, and when Ozpin gifted a bit of magic to RWBY, maybe it manifested itself in this semblance. And I hope that's the case, because if this is just an inherent semblance that she was born with and is capable of doing, then that opens up far too many doors. I've rambled on quite a bit for this video, but let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. What semblance do you think is the strongest that we've already seen in the RWBY series? Odds are that's probably Glinda and her telekinesis, but based on all of the semblances that are canon already in the world of RWBY, what do you think is the most powerful semblance possible overall that we might see in the RWBY series, or that just might be possible even if we don't see it? Do you think that this nuclear contact semblance that I'm thinking of right now, or something along those lines, is the most powerful semblance, being able to manipulate the atoms themselves? Or, based on having reality-breaking semblances, such as Good Fortune, Misfortune, Kindred Link, and Fiona Time's Palm Pocket, all of these different semblances open up many other reality-breaking doors. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are in the comments below. I'm really curious to know what your thoughts are. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. It's been a while since I've made a theory, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. It's been on my mind for a very long time, and now that the Phoenix Festival tournament itself is starting to wind down and there's less matches, I can have some chances to go back and do more videos like this. So there will be more coming in the future. We're going to get back to what we were doing before, but make sure to check out the Phoenix Festival tournament, the other polls that are currently going on. We are currently in the Volume 5 music poll. There is just over 24 hours left in that as of the posting of this video, and the Volume 6 music poll will be starting soon, with other polls going to be taking place. And moving into Volume 8, there's going to be a lot more content coming, so a lot to look forward to. Make sure to subscribe to join the Guild of the Eternal Flame. Tweet me at PhoenixKnight7, join our Discord server linked in the description below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.